probably my biggest thing that I took away from that entire thing is no matter how bad a day gets, there's always some good in it, and that people just let one bad thing ruin a whole day. And that has helped me take these moments of deep darkness and be like, hey, just remember, this is a moment.
And we're back
with another episode of He Said, She Said.
All right, so we thought we'd mix it up a little bit today. We've got our friends over here. They've become friends over the past couple of years, but they started out as individuals that found us by listening to our podcast. And I think you're going to love that story.
I love this full circle moment.
Right? So we're sitting here with Brianne and Danny Hoefelmann. They own an incredible podcast production company called The Good in Media. And before we, fast forward to their company and the cool stuff that they do, I really want to start by telling the story, I should say having them tell the story, how Danny found Lori's podcast in a time of need. You mind telling that part?
Yeah, I'm happy to. So on our end, you have to go back to 2015, 2016 for me. And Brianne and I had already been married. We got married when we were 18 and 19. So family was well established. We had 2 kids at the time. And I found myself not having the language to understand that I was depressed and moving quickly towards suicidal. And I had a door knocking job at the time where I was knocking door to door selling alarms, and basically reached a point where I just could not function anymore. I couldn't hold a job. And I think everyone, at least dudes, you should go and do a door knocking job for a summer if you can, because you will learn so much so quickly. It's insane. But doing it while you're suicidal, not recommended. that became a different thing. And at the end of 2015, going into 2016, I could not hold it together anymore. And we lost all our income. And we wound up having to lose our house, lose cars, and move in with my sister. So we left Phoenix, went to Houston to live with her. And I kind of made it my mission after a few months of just truly not being able to figure out what I was feeling. I made it my mission to figure out what happiness meant. And that was where you guys came in. One of the biggest things that I didn't have was hope. And the more people I talk to that struggle with mental health issues and things like that, the common theme is they don't feel like they can get better. The hope is gone. And I think when you're coming from a place of being hopeless, why even try to get better? Because you just can't. For me, that was the biggest struggle. And Brianne and I had really good conversations that, helped me just start to see that you can get better. And it started with me going to a library and realizing that for free I could download audiobooks. So I started listening to audiobooks, but it was really nothing specific.
Yeah.
And then I started trying to figure out, okay, what is happiness? And I came across, 2 people that made a major impact, you guys being probably the bigger one. But essentially, I typed in the word happy into the podcast app, and your podcast came up, Earn Your Happy.
Wow.
And for me, it was not even listening to the podcast, just reading the title was a click moment for me, because the idea that you have to earn your happiness, because everyone likes to say hey, you deserve happiness. And from a God perspective, you probably do. Have you done anything in your life to make you proud of yourself? That's a different conversation, but I had never seen it through that kind of lens. And at the time, I didn't even know if that was what you meant by it, but that was how
it was.
That was
the whole thing.
I needed that at the time. And it was something where I heard that and I was like, oh my gosh, okay, what are the things I could do? And I also came across Lewis Howes at the time, and he had told his story of losing everything and living on his sister's couch. And I literally listened to him tell that story while I was sitting on my sister's couch.
Wow.
And it was just such a cool thing where it was okay, if someone else can be in this point and get out of it, I can too. And that really started the snowball effect of how do we fix this thing? So that was how we really found you.
Wow. I love hearing this story because I struggled with the feeling of happiness for a very long time. Even halfway through the podcast, it was the realization that the things I do throughout the day are giving me a result. And even just what I put together with having the podcast is what I'm thinking about during the day. You can even do things that should make you happy. But if you're thinking different thoughts, while doing the things that should make you happy, then you can get very confused. Like I'm doing things that people are saying should make me happy and I'm still not feeling happy because you realize there's even more behind it, which I'm sure you also realized.
Very
So
much
that's the whole thing of earning it, is like you have to truly earn it with not only what you're doing, but also what you're thinking and who you're around. So that's why that makes me so happy that you found it, that other people are finding it who are kind of in that same boat, because I don't know what it is. What was it, just in your family? Was it like you didn't see that, or you never talked about that, or?
Without going super deep, like my parents split the first time when I was 11. And it very much, even if it wasn't true mentally, I had to step into kind of like man of the house mode. And as far as what I understood masculinity and all these things at the time was like, men don't really have feelings. And it wasn't even like now where you're like, oh, I'm stoic. It was just like, we just don't talk about those things. And so I really shut off my feelings for I don't know, from then until about 25 when I completely lost it. And and now I'm kind of on the other side. I have a hard time holding in feelings. And it's kind of a different thing. But for me, it was a lot more of, how do I stay strong? And I thought I had to be strong for everyone. But I didn't realize, and like, again, like I never really had anyone model the language or the behavior of, you have to take care of you too. I think everyone in my life to a degree was kind of like the martyr who was just like, I sacrificed my dreams so I could take care of the family, and I do this, and and it was just like, well, this is just what you do. Until you start to see models of people who are doing other things. And then you realize like, hey, maybe there's more to this. And when I was hitting that like lowest point, I just realized that like there were different things in my life that I was living, but I didn't believe in them. And some of that was church. Some of that was like, there was a lot of factors in that, but a lot of it stemmed from, I didn't think I was supposed to have these feelings. And until I actually opened up and told the world on a Facebook Live and an Instagram, like different posts, like, by the way, I'm going through this. And I'll quickly say it, but essentially her and I had not had an income in months. And then the old factory that I used to work in sent us a check saying like, hey, you have a 401k, or they just sent a letter saying you have a 401k with like $4 or $5 grand. You want to cash it out? And I was like, yes, please. We've had nothing. And then, so we cashed that out. And then when that came, we went on a date and someone posted, your life looks perfect. They had no idea that we were, I'm suicidal. We've lost everything. We're living with my sister. And I told Brianne and the family, just give me a few minutes. I got to go do something. And I went into the bedroom and I did a Facebook Live just stating, you guys are seeing a highlight reel. And I was just trying to not add negativity to the internet. So I didn't talk about it. I wasn't trying to like portray something different. But when I realized it just broke me. So I laid it out over like a 6-7 minute video just saying, this is what's really going on. And I had dozens of messages of people just saying like, dude, me too. But no one talks about that.
Gosh.
Wow.
And I can't tell you the release, just the weight on my shoulders of like, we all have to hide this and this is shameful and it's whatever. And now it's like, no, I have dozens of people that are also in community with me saying like, hey, me too. How are you getting through it? What are you doing? And it also gave me such a bigger purpose.
Wow. Brianne, I got to ask you. So you guys, your husband's suicidal at the time. You lost everything. You're living at his sister's house. What were you thinking during this? How were you feeling?
I was feeling everything that you would think you would feel at first, right? You see your spouse, the person that you love so much, going through just one of the hardest things, and you feel for them. I just like felt for just the empathy was that first feeling. And then after a while, it turned into, at the time, not understanding, right? Like we've been able to learn a lot through this process. But in the beginning, it was like, are we not good enough to get better for?
Wow.
Like those were some of the feelings, like seeing him feel hopeless. I was definitely at the time in victim mode. So I'm looking at him and I'm going, you're my rock. You're my person that usually is the one that is supporting me and the family. And so at first I was like that nurturer, and had empathy. But after a while I was like, forget me. Like, are our kids not good enough to get healthy and better for? And I didn't understand it. I just like had no grasp at the time. And luckily, I think the thing that kept everything together was our communication the whole time. Like, because there were,
look like, just for people that need it. What did your communication look like at the time?
Yeah. So, I mean, it really looked like him just being like, hey, I'm not going to hide anything from you. Like, I'm having a really, really bad day. And he would open up to me and just say, actually, it's completely the opposite of what you think. If I can share it, like there were times where he would look at me and go, he's like, I really feel like you know, Brianne, you and the kids, like you deserve better than me. And that's where a lot of that was coming from. So me understanding that, it was like, okay, like thanks for letting me in. Cause I think if he would have closed off and shut me out and I had no clue what was going on in his mind, there were definitely times, even with our open communication, that I was like, do I leave? His feeling of hopelessness mixed with mine. And at the time thinking I couldn't do anything to change the situation. Cause of course I can't change him. Like I couldn't change his mental state. Like I could only focus on myself. And so those were real thoughts. It was like, do I pack up the kids and do we leave?
Yeah.
And luckily that communication stayed open, and seeing him go, okay, like let's listen to this personal development. Let's listen to this podcast. Let's read this book. Let's just have open communication together. Like that honestly kept me going. And I know every single person has had those moments where they're going through something and they're like, I don't know if I could do another day of this.
Yep.
You know, where you wake up and you're like, physically, you feel like you don't have the mental, spiritual, emotional strength to go through it. And that's what it felt like, honestly, for a few months.
Wow.
Until it was like, I kind of channeled that, you know, all the stages of grief. Like I was grieving over what you think your life is going to be like. And it's definitely not, you don't think I'm going to get married. We're going to live happily ever after with our beautiful 2 kids in his sister's house, you know, with a husband that's like, I'm literally worried that am I going to lose him? And so it was just like, that open communication and just being like, yeah, this is really shitty. This is where I'm at. Honesty is what it was really like being able to ask each other, this might hurt you, but this is what's really going on with me.
So I've got to ask, fast forward, it's probably 7-8 years now. Is this why you guys started the podcast production company? Is because a podcast saved your life and turned things around for you guys? Or how'd you go from where you were at there to using a podcast to, I don't want to say save your life, but turn to when you were suicidal, to deciding that you guys are going to help amplify other people's voices?
Yeah. I mean, of course, like anything, it doesn't happen all at once, but I tell people all the time now that podcasts were our therapy and mentors before we could afford therapy and mentors. And that's been super, super powerful for us. And I'll just speak to maybe someone's listening and their spouse is the one that's not super open to personal development. I was actually that person of the 2 of us.
Wow.
And
it took the other way around.
Yeah. And I was the one that was like, he's coming to me, and luckily I did open up little by little. But I mean, you've paved the way for a lot of what we've done. And I've been able to be that supportive role in my own way in our marriage and in our business. But yeah, it really started with just learning. Because when we were going through this, having a business was not on our radar.
Yep.
The goal at that point was even just like, let's just get, quote, good jobs and be able to move forward and eventually set a little nest egg aside. And you know what I mean? The whole American dream as far as just working for someone else. And I think this is why we're so freaking grateful to you guys, is because not only did you show us that whole happiness piece of working on our personal development, but what's possible to even start a business. Like, we didn't go to business school. We went to freaking podcast school. So I'll let you speak to the business too, but.
Yeah. And I think she nailed it. I think the biggest thing for me is I had one really big lesson, like probably my biggest thing that I took away from that entire thing is no matter how bad a day gets, there's always some good in it. And that people just let one bad thing ruin a whole day. And that has helped me take these moments of deep darkness and be like, hey, just remember, this is a moment. I could walk out of this room right now and like go see my kids. It's a totally different energy. Like let's not let moments ruin whole days. And the more you compound bad whole days, like it's going to compound one way or the other. So you can start to feed your brain the positive side and let it start to, see things in a more positive way. Or you can, allow yourself to sit and spiral. And for a long time, I just let myself sit and spiral because I didn't think that it could be better. Hopefully, in hearing, that there is hope that it does get better if you seek it out, someone takes that step and goes and does that. Because I think the reason we care about the business, and I've shared this with Chris, but I'm like, I don't care about building a media company. That is not my passion. But I do care deeply about impacting millions of people and helping them stay. And my voice on my own podcast and the things that I do, I can reach so many people. But there are going to be people that resonate with you, Lori, that won't resonate with me. And the same that Chris they won't resonate with Lori. Like we all have individual people that we're meant to reach. I really believe that. I want to encourage people to use their voices so that they can actually get to those people who need them. And I know that like my voice could probably reach thousands, if not millions. But if I'm behind 100 different brands that are all reaching thousands, if not millions, how much bigger is my impact? That's what I believe in.
Hey y'all, if you didn't know, Earn Your Happy is now a part of the Growth Day Podcast Network. This is so exciting to me because I have been looking for a really good home for the show for, I can't even tell you, years, literally. And now I've finally been able to come together and collaborate with other people who have incredible shows, and I want to share them with you. One of the shows is Motivation with Brendon Burchard. And you guys, if you don't know about the beginning of my career, I literally started with Brendon Burchard's work. It's how I launched one of my very first online courses and membership sites, was because he gives so much advice that you can integrate and implement immediately. And that's what you're going to get on the show. Not just motivation, but you're going to learn exactly how to get your stuff out in the world. And not just that, but Brendon runs in the most incredible group of humans who are really doing the thing out in the world that you want to be doing. So go check it out. Go subscribe to Motivation with Brendon Burchard. I promise you, this is going to be one of those shows that no matter when you tune in, you're going to get value. Like, it's not one of those that you're like, God, I listened for 30 minutes and I didn't get what I wanted. Like, from the beginning, you're going to get something that changes your life or changes your business. So go check it out. Motivation with Brendon Burchard. I know you're going to love it. I'm obsessed. I love that so much. And now, Brianne, I'm just picturing him listening to my podcast and you being like, who's that bitch?
Not gonna lie, it was kind of like that. I was like, we even talked about this earlier today. I was like, when I give you advice, okay, and you don't listen, but here's this chick. No,
trust me.
But,
that's our conversation. So I'm like, okay, so like what I've been telling you, but okay, great.
Well, the funny thing, we don't have to go deep on this one because I know these are shorter episodes, but you also were at a pivotal point in a different part in our life where I had known that I no longer wanted to be a part of our church, but I didn't know how to say that out loud. And we were on a road trip, and I don't know if I recommend or don't recommend, but on the road trip, I had already decided, again, like I'm in full honesty mode. This is after the rebuild has started. I do not hide things anymore. I had committed to, if she ever asked me if I believe in the church again, I would just tell her I don't. And I was very aware that I would lose my marriage, you know? And we're on a road trip and we're listening to something that you guys had put out. And she turned to me and she was like, I think you give more value to the opinions of them than the people in our church. Do you even believe in the church anymore? And I was like, Like,
perfect time to ask this kind of question too,
like,
right?
We've got 3 more hours left of this drive. What do I say here? But I told her, I was like, no, I don't, you know? So, and like, you guys unknowingly were kind of the impetus to like her being open to like, all right, I want to listen to the personal development he's listening to, because I want to at least be able to be on the same page. I want to understand why is he giving value to these things. And it was just, I don't know. There was 2 really big moments in our life that you guys were completely unaware of, but like,
well, I am so glad you're thriving right now because I would feel really bad if you weren't.
It's incredible. You know, all this circles back to the power of podcasting and why it's important to amplify your message when you have one. And you've done, I really want to point out to people who are like in the beginning of their journey. Yeah. You went from suicidal to then questioning the specific religion that you were in. And you don't have to share it, which one, but, you know, a very specific one, to then saying, wait, I want to amplify other people's voices, hence starting your business, and you had never had a business before, to then saying, how do I scale this business? And you got yourself to a point where you could invest in some help. And that's when you showed up in a way that we could notice you. You showed up in one of our entry-level masterminds at the time. And all I could think about sitting here the whole time as you're describing your low point was, I don't recognize this guy he's describing, because the way you showed up, remember there was like 110 people in this online mastermind at a time. We'd do calls with about 55 people on Zoom at a time. But every time this guy with a big smile and great questions and a bright Hawaiian shirt or a bright shirt of some sort,
always happy with
was always there. And of the 55 Zoom boxes, yours always stood out as, oh, I like this guy. oh, this is the guy who has the happy, positive energy that I gravitate towards. So it's so weird for me to hear where you started, because by the time you made it on our radar, you were like a beaming light that people were attracted to.
Was that a choice how you showed up on there? Did you have to be like, oh, I want to show up this way?
It's hilarious to me to hear that was how you guys perceived me, because I was scared shitless and didn't think I asked a good question. So, it's definitely a thing where when we made it out of Houston and like, cause we got back to Phoenix and I was like, I don't want to build in Houston. I want to go back to Phoenix. We made it back and we were in a really unique position. And I don't think it takes this, but I think it was helpful. No one knew us and we didn't move back to our old area. We moved to a completely new area and I really had we had real communication around like, I can choose to show up as the Danny that everyone else knew before, or I can show up in a totally new way and just let people see who I am becoming. And I consciously had said, like, I'm not like, I was open about mental health, but I was not going to be someone who was a victim of things. And I was very intentional about, especially in communities that I respected and wanted to be a part of, I'm going to try to just show up and smile, even if I'm scared shitless and none of this makes sense to me. I'm just going to try to make an impact. And especially like you guys being who you were and unknowingly having been such a big part of our story, I wanted to show up for you guys. You know, I wanted to be able to I wanted to serve even from afar in a way of like, even if I ask good questions, hopefully that gets noticed. Yeah. And hopefully that encourages other people in the group to ask good questions or to take something from that. Because I knew eventually if I served enough, hopefully my original goal was to be able to interview you guys on my podcast one day. So the fact
now it's the other way around.
Well, and it's the other way around. And the fact that I'm very grateful to say that like, I actually just consider you a friend and I have like a true relationship with you. And I'm like, dude, you have no idea what can change in a decade. Like we're not even a decade out. And the circle of influence that used to be just the people on my, my podcast list, a lot of them are either in my world or one connection away now. And it just from us showing up and saying like, hey, like, doesn't matter what the room is, but I'll show up and I'll try to just be a positive energy. Yeah. And if I can be that, something good will happen if I keep showing up. And I think that's about as much as I thought it through. But like, sounds like a lot now that I realize I've been talking for 5 minutes, but like it was very much I just want to add value to them somehow.
I want to add one more thing, one more way that you're adding value that's very important to people, I think, that want to be in the room, but maybe don't have the funds at the moment to be in the room or something like that. You came to us, you're like, hey, I love these roundtables that you're doing. Could I be in the room and film it and turn it into content for you in exchange for being in there, learning and being around the positive energy? And I thought, what a brilliant way to do an equal energy exchange. And you get what you need, we get what we need. And it's instead furthered our friendship and furthered our relationship because now we've gotten to spend that much more time together. So for those of you listening, you're like, well, how do I get in the room? Maybe you've got something you can leverage of value that the other people need so that it's an equal energy exchange. But I just wanted to point that out for people's benefit as well. Brianne, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think that's really important because you and I have done things like this in our careers over and over. And I think it's one of the fastest ways to get on people's radars. And you're not even doing it from like, what can I get? It's truly like, wow, being able to be among those people. And also you want, like, I truly know your hearts are to add value. And I feel that. So I think for people listening, when they're like, I don't have the money for it. Okay, really look at how you can add value without, you know what I mean? Without having to spend the money.
Yeah. Brianne, I want to ask you about podcasting because, here we're talking about the power of getting your story out there, no matter what your platform is. Is it happiness? Is it mental health? Is it finances? Everybody needs to learn from somebody. And you said so well, they're not going to learn from their spouse necessarily, but if someone else says the same thing on a podcast, then they'll start learning. So you've taken that mission. You're helping other people produce their podcasts. What's important to starting a podcast today? Like if someone's like, okay, damn it, that's it. I'm doing it. What's important in getting started? How difficult is it really? And how many shows a week should they be doing? Like, walk us through the basics of getting your message out there.
Yeah. So there's two pieces to that answer. And I'm going to start with this one because it's what we've been talking about is who are you serving? Because you could go get your cute little microphone and you could set up everything and have the most beautiful setup and all of that. But if you don't know who you're speaking to and who you're serving, like you guys live this. You serve others on such a massive scale that it comes back to you. I know that's something that you guys believe in, and so do we. And so it's like, and same thing with us coming into the room and saying, or Danny offering to come and do the roundtables, how can I serve you? So it's just knowing who do you serve and then being able to actually offer value to that person. I think that's something for everyone to know based on their story. And most often it's going to be, okay, where were you 6 months ago, a year ago, a decade ago? Okay, what were the things that you were struggling with at that time? And then being able to help that person. I think we overcomplicate it when it comes to, okay, who should I make content for? It's you, just a few steps back. So I think that's an important piece. And then also when you get into, I mean, we could get into like specifics as far as like, you better freaking be doing video. When you start your podcast, to me, you ask how hard is it? Go to an agency. Reach out to a friend that's DIY'd their podcast by themselves if you're not to that point where you can invest in an agency. But I think, again, we just overcomplicate it. And my goal for what we do is like, let me make it as simple as possible for you as the podcast host so that you can just be in that mode of serving your audience, connecting with them.
I've got two bounce back questions to that. The first one is, what is the least expensive you think someone could start a podcast? And then if they want an agency to take them from, idea to rocking and rolling, what should they budget for that?
You want to know the cheapest
Yep,
option?
the cheapest if they're going to DIY, whatever the heck that phrase is.
Yeah.
I always get it wrong.
He doesn't, you don't do that. No, you got a cell phone. You're listening to this podcast on a cell phone. That's all you need, and like a hosting platform. So literally, I mean, and for Danny, I'm sure as he's the audio snob of the two of us, and he'd probably be like, what? But I mean,
no, it's still true.
It's still,
the cheapest.
I mean,
I still record some of mine in my car.
See, there you go. On your cell phone.
On a cell phone right now, you guys.
It removes the barrier of getting things done. If you have a bunch of barriers and you have to set up lights and set up cameras and set up microphones and all the things, it's really easy to not do. Not to mention, maybe your house isn't clean, maybe the dogs are running around or your kids are home. If your goal is, I know I need to serve and you need to do it quickly and cheaply, your phone works really, really well.
Yeah, record a voice note. It's like $20 a month to have a hosting platform and upload the audio,
And what if they want an agency to do that? What should they budget start to finish?
I mean, it just depends with working with us. I mean, again, we're trying to make it as easy and simple as possible. It's such a no-brainer to when you look at your hourly rate and what you're needing to spend, whether it's a mutual friend of ours. I was talking to Kara Ayala and she's like, I'm going to spend my time this way. Either it's going to bring me joy and pour back into me, or it's going to make me money. And so like, that's how she makes those decisions. And so if you're to that point where you're like, okay, I do have, money to invest in this and it's worth either being able to have that time to pour into you or grow your business, then hire someone like us. And, you can spend $5,000 to get started. If you really want to blow up your content, your message and reach more people, you can spend $2,500 to $3,000. And it's not anything crazy to be able to set that aside to have all of that done for you. And you're in that mode of just like serving your audience.
Those are not big numbers. I understand they're big numbers to some people, but some people right now might be saying, oh my God, wait, I could have somebody else do this editing and podcast art start to finish for me in kind of a bigger way for like $5,000. That's awesome.
Well, what do people spend on marketing?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that is your podcast is your top of your funnel. It's your way to add people to your email list and they're directly coming to you and they're your people because they're clicking on your podcast and saying yes to you every single time they press play. So
Danny, you're Mr. Video. Why should we take the extra step of, getting video content while we record, and what's the easiest way to do it?
Go where the people are, meaning not everyone knows what a podcast is, even today. And people know what YouTube is. So if you can get yourself on video in a way that allows you to actually show up on YouTube, now you're searchable. Not to mention YouTube is, owned by Google. So when someone types in how to do X and you have a podcast titled how to do X, now you have an opportunity to be found. So no matter what, I'm always a big believer on video just because it also lets you multi-purpose things. You may take the full video of the conversation, but can we take 5 to 15 different little highlights from it? And now you have your social media content for the month. I think that's one of the biggest things too, is just making it easy on yourself. Like if I show up and I'm bringing the whole studio to you, we're going to have 3 cams, we're going to have lightings, we're going to have overkill everything, but it's going to look beautiful. But again, that's not where it starts. Your phone is really, really awesome. And if that's just you setting up a tripod, and you might not even publish the whole video, but you publish the clips because you caught them. That's the easiest thing. We're using, DJI microphones right now. I think this set is like $350, if that. And this connects to the phone. And if we want to, like, this could be it. This could be the whole thing. Like, Brianne and I were planning to do a lot of travel in the next year or two. And the goal was we set these microphones connected to the phone, and this is what we have, and just make it easy. So the barrier to entry on video, again, like if you're going to have an agency do it, it might be a couple grand a month. It might be like, it can range really high. You guys know this.
Yep.
When people are trying to do cinema quality, it's a whole different ballgame. But I don't think that's what's necessary anymore. I also think that on like Instagram and these different things, if you have the super produced piece of content, it doesn't necessarily get as much traction sometimes because people are like, oh, this is an ad. Sometimes your cell phone is better than you think. And I think people need to lean into that a little more.
Okay, so for those people who maybe aren't ready to do a podcast, but I think every person listening should be getting consistent with content. And I just want to share, it was a goal of mine this last year to get really consistent with content. Just show up every single day I picked one platform for the most part. I show up on my podcast, but then Instagram, I show up every single day. So kind of like quote tile, reel, quote tile, reel is kind of my flow. And I will tell you that so many people have been saying, oh my God, you're everywhere. I've noticed that my things are selling out. So what I share ends up selling out a lot faster. There's a lot more engagement on everything that I'm doing. And I will tell you, I would say 80% of my content is just okay. Maybe more than that. Maybe 90% is like just kind of like, I'm like, that's okay. Like,
I had a shit one yesterday that got 75,000 views. It's so weird.
But my entire point is consistency and how important it is. And so for anybody listening, I know that you also have something else that you have come out with that you're going to do for people who need to be more consistent. What is that?
So we've developed something that we would just want to call 20 questions. And I think everyone kind of gets that concept because we've all kind of played the game 20 questions. But in real life, like, how do we make it easy for your business? Because again, your job is to be the business owner, not to be the content creator. So for us, we want to be able to come to you or arrange a studio, whatever that makes sense. But how can we make it so that your job is to show up, you talk with us for 2 to 3 hours, and then you're done, and you have 2 to 3 months worth of content. That's the goal of everything. So the way that looks for us is when you show up for 20 questions, it's 20 questions. Realistically, it's probably going to be 35 to 40 with me. And it's me getting to kind of interview you. And then we go in, we actually do research on what is important to you. What are you launching? What are the things that you have coming up, so that we're asking you relevant topics, but we're making it so that as you get to sit with us, we're getting to capture so much that you're walking away with not only highlight reels for Instagram and TikTok and YouTube shorts, but you're also walking away with longer form content so that if you want to have short podcasts and things like that, you'll walk away with those too. That'll live on YouTube. They'll live on the podcast apps. And all of that really just is like, we do the legwork so that you, the owner who runs 10 different things and is trying to do everything, now you can show up for 3-4 hours and you're probably done for the quarter if you do it right.
Yeah, you get 2 to 3 months worth of content out of this. Here's why I like it. Our social media manager, Kaylee, I feel bad for her because she's like, I need 10 videos. Like, they're past due. And I'm like, so I'll sit down and I'll look in the camera and it feels like pressure. What the hell am I supposed to say in this thing? I hate it. It feels so inauthentic to me. But you give me a Q&A setting, which is what you're basically replicating. I will go all day long, right? Put me in front of a group, a mastermind, let me answer questions. I will crush it. That's when I'm in my zone. This replicates that Q&A setting, and it makes it so much easier for somebody like me. And it's a freaking bargain, by the way. Okay, well, listen, we're just so proud of the journey that you guys have taken that we spur of the moment said, hey, be on the show. Guys, for context, by the way, you want to know how this happened? You already heard how they kind of worked themselves into our life by adding value, all that fun stuff. But we were sitting in the backyard, literally just going through a couple of things in their business because they've done a couple of things for us. We said, hey, come do a jam session. We'll help you with your business. And Lori said, she's like, hey, we have to do a he said, she said. We want to ask you about your background and why podcasting is so important. And that's how we ended up here. So you never know how you're going to end up somewhere. But thank you so much for just being you guys and for sharing that story, especially the vulnerable part in the beginning. So I think it's really important to encourage everybody listening to amplify their message.
Mm-hmm.
Don't wait till you think you're an expert. Don't wait till you think you deserve to, quote, teach other people. You're most relatable when you're in your journey, not after you've made your journey. So get in front of a mic, even if it's your cell phone, and start your podcast.
Mm-hmm.
If anyone's inspired by what you guys are doing, where can they find you?
Easiest place to find us is at The Good in Media on Instagram. That's the best place to connect.
At The Good in Media. The Good in Media on Instagram. So send you a DM and you guys will help them out.
Yep, we'll take care of you.
Love it.
Looks like a smiley face on the logo, so that's us.
All right, guys, hit them up at The Good in Media on Instagram. Thanks for listening. We always love and appreciate you.
Bye, guys. We'll see you next week.
Hey, thanks for listening to the podcast. And I want to make sure that you have my phone number, and I'm not kidding. Did you know that I have a community text number? For real. My phone number is 310-496-8363. This goes directly to my phone. All you have to do is text the word daily to 310-496-8363. And I literally text you every single day, Monday through Friday. I actually just got done 30 seconds ago texting a bunch of people back, and I talk to you all of the time. You guys, people always ask me how I got my community text number and how it works. Well, all you have to do is you can just go to community.com and get your own. Community makes it easy to get a phone number that you can use to build your audience using text. People just text you at your number and they're added to your group. Then you can text them out audios, video links, anything you want. You guys, I text out happy birthday videos. I love to send podcast links, thoughts about life, book recommendations, different events that I'm doing in the local area. Texting gets me out of the noise of social media and directly into your hand. And now you can start texting your people too. Just go to community.com to get your phone number. They give you a 10-digit real phone number, not those weird short codes that look like spam, but it's more than a phone number. Your new number comes with an inbox for SMS and texting. This means you can actually manage your text list from your computer and an app on your phone. You can schedule text to send at certain times and to certain groups. You can even set up auto replies or let your assistant or customer service team answer your text messages via Community's awesome dashboard. Just go to community.com and ask for a free demo. They'll show you how it works and get you your number. It's time to start texting your audience versus just posting on social media. Everyone uses Community for that. So go check them out at community.com. I can tell you it's not just great for communicating with my audience, but Chris and I use Community and our texts to also sell out our launches. I'm telling you, you get such an incredible response because you really are creating a true, deep sense of community. And it's so intimate. It's freaking amazing. Go check it out at community.com.
Hey, do you know what the big secret is this year? And it shouldn't be a secret because this should be your biggest focus. It is building your community. I am always working on building and nurturing my community, and everyone is talking about the power of community. Without an online community, you just cannot grow organically or create a real movement, which is what I know that we're all after. And you can build trust or monetize your audience. When you get community right, not only does your audience grow faster, but so do your sales. But where's everybody going to be managing their communities these days? And a lot of online entrepreneurs and thought leaders are turning to Circle.so. Circle is an all-in-one community platform. It lets you host content and create discussions, live streams, group chats, and memberships all under your own brand. And what's so cool about Circle.so is that you don't even need a website or Facebook group. Instead, Circle lets you build your own community site where you can host content and manage your members. You can even create locked and unlocked content spaces, groups, and classes. How freaking cool is that? You can put your content behind a
paywall too, and you can charge different amounts of money for different spaces on your community site. Circle.so is famously easy to use, and it has a free 14-day trial for you, so you can go check it out, see if you like it, see if you love all the options. Just go to circle.so. Go check it out right now, you guys. Imagine being able to manage your community, start group chats and live classes, and accept payments all in one place. Kind of mind-blowing, since this is usually spread all over the place. You have to log into so many different things. If this is the year to capture, organize, and monetize your community, head over to circle.so. You can get a free trial and start building your online community right now. Just go to circle.so. You guys, you get the 14-day free trial. So just go and see if it's for you. It's going to streamline everything and make your life so much easier. It's so freaking cool.